First, I will explain why the choice of words US-China and trade conflict is not exactly very precise. Second part, I will answer what we need to do as a country and as companies. Let me touch on the first part. Today, the challenges that we are facing on the external environment is not exactly limited to only the tensions between US and China. The uncertainties around the world has gone beyond US and China. It includes the uncertainties with Brexit, Japan and Korea, Hong Kong, and others. It has also affected the functioning of the WTO system, the World Trade Organization, of which the challenges to the continued functioning of the appellate body is a serious concern for all of us. So it is not just about US and China. The second part is that it is also not just about a trade war. The competition between US-China today has gone beyond trade to encompass technology and other issues. So it's a more multifaceted challenge that we are dealing with. Now, with that as the backdrop, the question is, how do we as a country and as companies adapt and adjust our strategy amidst all these uncertainties? Let me touch on a three-pronged strategy that I think we need to adopt: diversification, innovation and investment, and training. Let me elaborate on diversification. To manage the uncertainties ahead of us, which may take quite a while to settle down, we should continuously diversify our markets, our supply chains, and our product mix. For the diversification of the markets, we must always remember that there are still many parts of the world that are experiencing strong and positive growth. And this is the reason why MTI with the economic agencies will continue to diversify our portfolio of free trade agreements, both in terms of the number of free trade agreements and the quality of the free trade agreement, in order for our companies to access the markets around the world, especially those with strong and positive growth. The second part of diversification has to do with supply chains. In this world of flux, supply chains might be disrupted because of economic and political reasons. And this is why the economic agencies are working closely with all our companies to make sure that our sources of materials, labors, and other factors of productions are continuously will continuously stay robust and resilient amidst these shifting geopolitical tensions. Last but not least, we must continue to diversify our product mix as an economy. We must make sure that no one particular sector dominates the economy to the extent that it causes us to be much more fragile than we need be. And this is how we have approached the situation over the last many years. And if we look at the numbers today, while some sectors like the electronics, the precision engineering, and the wholesale trade and retail are down, there are also sectors in the ICT, Infocom sector, in the biomedical sector, in the professional services that are still up. So that diversification of our economy and product mix actually helps us to stabilize the overall economic performance. The second strategy that we need to adopt amidst all this flux is to make sure that we continue to innovate and invest. First, we must make sure that we continuously do better to translate our research outcome into enterprises. We must complete the research, innovation, and enterprise cycle, not a chain, but a cycle. And we must build real capabilities beyond building capacities. We must compete on the basis of real capabilities rather than just capacities. For countries that are much bigger than us with much stronger and more diverse resource base, they might compete on the basis of capacity. But for us, we compete on the basis of capability. It's often said that many countries are competing on the low mix, high volume products. That is a lot to do with capacity. For us, if we are to be serious in competing with what we call the high mix, low volume products, then research and innovation, intellectual property protection, quality standards are all very important, and those play to our strengths. The second thing that we need to invest much more on is the adoption and proliferation of our digital platforms, especially amongst the small and medium enterprises within our economy. These are not very difficult solution sets. They are available in the market, and we are committed to work with our trade associations and chambers to make sure that we accelerate the pace of adoption. And when we achieve critical mass, it will also bring about a vicious cycle for us to reduce the price of adoption and allows businesses to do business with one another easier. Last but not least, with or without the current challenges amidst the global uncertainties, we must continuously look at our production system and processes. And there's always room for us to innovate in such things beyond the innovation in products. It's about the innovation in production systems and processes that can make us more productive. The third prong of the strategy has to do with training. There are three subparts to the training strategy which I think we need to focus on. We have often talked about the training of the workers, and that is well known. And we'll continue to invest heavily in the training of our workers, especially in the acquisition of skills for the Industry 4.0 journey, the digital platforms, and so forth. This is an area where SSG, WSG, NTUC, and the trade association chambers must work closely to bring the level of our skills of our workers up to speed with what is required by the markets. But having said that, it is necessary but insufficient just to focus on workers' training. We also need to focus more heavily on the training of the leadership teams in the respective companies. And this is an area that I have discussed with many of the trade associations and chambers, and we can do much more. From my own experience in NTUC, before we even talk about the training of the workers, it is most important for us to open up the vision of the management team. For example, in the recent rollout of the Scale Up Singapore initiative, we did not focus just on the workers' training. We focused on the training of the management team by getting the entire management team to come in, do their visioning exercise, do their change management exercises together as a team before we even talk about the workers' training. Last but not least, when it comes to training, we will have to do much more to better organize ourselves and our respective agencies, from the trade associations and chambers to the overseas missions from EDB and ESG and other economic agencies, so that we can combine the market knowledge that we have to help our enterprises to diversify their markets beyond Singapore. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, in short, I think the current situation warrants us to take a close look at how we develop our companies and economies, and we must go beyond looking at just the US-China issues. We must go beyond looking at it just as a trade issue. There are various things that we must do, regardless whether is it US-China or whether is it a trade issue. Continue to diversify our markets, continue to diversify our supply chains and product mix, continue to invest in innovation and build real capabilities and not just capacities, and focus on the training, not just of the workers, but also of the management team, and focus on sharing market knowledge with all our available agencies.